Well, welcome to Coastal Community Church. My name is TJ. I'm one of the pastors here. We're so glad that you're with us today, and I'm excited to be back with you guys. It's been a couple weeks since I've had the opportunity to speak to you guys, and can you guys help me as we begin today? Can you guys help me welcome everybody that's watching online, everybody at our Lighthouse Point, and everybody in West Boca? Come on, Parkland. Let's show them some love. We're so glad that you guys are joining with us. I'm excited about today. We are in week 2 of a series we're calling Legacy. This is a series that we do every single year, this time of the year, talking about our faith, our family, and our future. We kicked this series off last weekend with my friend Micah from Vapor Ministries, and he was talking about how life is just a vapor, how our time is limited and but a breath, but yet we still have an opportunity every single day to make an impact with our life, and how we are to be living an impactful life. And today we're going to be talking about something that I believe that every single one of us, no matter your age, no matter your title, your income, your past, that you and I are building right now. Whether you realize it, recognize it, even understand it, you and I, every single day, are building our legacy. Now, I know when I say the word legacy, we automatically think of some rich uncle or last wills or some family fancy name on a hospital or on a college campus. And you're like, TJ, legacy? Like, I don't even have a will. Like, what I've got is I've got like a Disney Plus subscription. So like, when you're going there, I'm not even sure that like you're talking to the right person, but this is what I found in life, that legacy isn't about what you leave for people. Legacy is actually what you leave in people. I put it in your notes like this, and this is kind of the big idea for this series, is legacy is when your influence outlives your involvement. And the goal for all of us in life is for our influence to outlive our involvement. When you're no longer in the room, your values are still speaking. Like when your kids still live by what you actually taught them in life, when your generosity continues to impact lives of people you'll never meet, because here's what I know is fame fades, but faith multiplies. Positions end, but principles continue to echo in life. And so here's the big idea about today. It's simply this: legacy isn't measured in duration, it's measured in impact. It's not about the span of your life, it's about the impact in your life. Because how many of you know there are people that live 90 years on this earth and they never make an ounce of difference? Then there are some people that live 33 years and their voice is still echoing today. Come on, somebody, Jesus. Like, it's not about duration, it's actually about impact and what you're imparting into other people. And so when I was thinking about this, I thought of a woman named Barbara. In fact, they're gonna throw a picture of Barbara up on the screen. This is Barbara. And many of you will never meet Barbara because Barbara passed away a few years ago. But Barbara's impact is immeasurable. See, when this little boy was 7 years old and going through his parents being divorced, was angry at the world, he went to live with his grandmother named Barbara. And in his anger and his frustration that he was taking out on the world, every day Barbara would grab him, lay hands on him, and pray for him. As he would continue on in life, he would get voicemails and phone calls and cards from Barbara, always encouraging him to run after God and seek God, to know God. A devout Catholic. When she died, my father called me up and said, I have something for you. When I showed up to my dad's house, he had Barbara's Bible. pages falling out, notes scribbled all over it, one of the few Catholics that ever read her Bible. Not dogging you, it's just true. She's never been famous. She never had an Instagram following. She never wrote a book. But her legacy of faith was imparted into a 7-year-old boy named TJ McCormick, whose values were defined by a woman who would never give up on her grandson, who is now impacting thousands upon thousands upon thousands of lives. In fact, 5,001 people up until this weekend have given their life to Christ just this year because this woman prayed. And I tell you that story is because that's a legacy that outlives involvement. That's a life of impact that is still being felt to this day. Because here's what I know about you and I. We can't pass down what we don't live out. And a lot of us, we're trying to pass things down that we're not living out. We're wondering why there's a conflict between what we want in our children and what they actually possess. Because when we ask them to be something that we're not, you know what that's called? That's called hypocrisy. It's also why the world looks at us and goes, you're a bunch of phonies. Come on, are we having church yet? If we want to live a legacy, like a life that outlives our involvement, then our words and our actions, there has to be a correlation there, church. And that is a woman that lived a legacy. It is what I would call a Psalm 112 life. She feared God, she loved people, and left a faith that is still impacting generations today. That's a legacy life. That's an influence that outlives your involvement. In fact, I want to read Psalm 112 to you. It's what we're going to be looking at today. I think it's one of the greatest examples of what a legacy life looks like. And it says this, it says, praise the Lord. Blessed are those who fear the Lord and find great delight in his commands. Their children will be mighty in the land. The generation of the upright will be blessed. Wealth and riches are in their houses, and their righteousness endures forever. Even in darkness, light dawns for the upright. For those who are gracious and compassionate and righteous, good will come to those who are generous and lend freely, who conduct their affairs with justice. Surely the righteous will never be shaken. They will be remembered forever. And I just want to give you some principles out of this passage of scripture that I think that will help every single one of us live lives where our influence outlives our involvement. Number one is simply this: legacy begins with lordship. Legacy always begins with lordship. Psalm 112 verse 1 says, blessed are those who fear the Lord and find great delight in his commands. Listen, the foundation of legacy isn't success, it's actually surrender. You want to be, everybody's looking for success in life. What we should be looking for is significance. And significance is found is when we surrender our lives to Jesus, because before you can build a name that matters, you've got to know the name that is above every other name. The name that sets you free, that allows you to live with God's design, that gives you an empowerment for a life that actually impacts other people. See, it says, blessed are those who fear the Lord. The word fear there does not mean like panic. I'm shivering, I'm biting my nails because I'm so afraid. It actually means reverence and priority. It means that God's not a part of my schedule. He's the center of my story. That God is leading, guiding, and directing my life, that he is the ultimate. It's why Jesus said, hey, disciples, that when they came to him and said, hey, Jesus, teach us how to pray. Because we don't, obviously the way that you connect with God and the way that we connect with God is completely different, because our prayers are very self-centered. Come on, does anybody have any self-centered prayers? Don't raise your hand. We know you do. But most of our prayers, God, help me, do this in me, do blah, blah, blah. When Jesus taught people to pray, he said, what did he say? Here's what I want you to pray. thy kingdom come, thy will be done. Most of our prayers are, my kingdom come, my will be. God, here's what I want. I need you to do it ASAP. That's not fast enough, God. Come on, let's be honest. And Jesus goes, no. Here, it's not about God surrendering to you. It's about you surrender to God. Thy kingdom come. Thy will be done. Because legacy doesn't begin when you die. It actually begins when you decide who you're going to live for. Are you going to live for yourself? Or are you going to live for God? And here's what I've discovered from my own life. If God's first, everything else seems to fall in order. But if he's not, eventually everything seems to fall apart. Like, he's got to be the priority. How many of you guys have ever been to IKEA? IKEA, raise your hand, it's okay. It's okay, we've all been there. It's kind of like hell on earth. How many of you have purchased IKEA furniture? Okay, so you guys have all experienced hell on earth. That's like purgatory. This is the actual experience. I don't know if you're like me, but I don't know if you've ever tried to put together IKEA furniture without directions. It's an amazing experience. It will take you about 16 hours, and you will end up with 17 or 18 additional parts that are not in the object that you are building. And it will look good, but it will not be able to carry any weight. You'll also have counseling set up for you and your wife. Because how many of you know, even if you have directions, you're gonna end up with counseling after that experiment. And you'll probably have a Swedish meatball that becomes your comfort. It's not a great experience. I think that that's life without God's blueprint. You can try to build something that looks fine, but that life will not hold up under pressure. And the person who actually fears the Lord builds their life not according to how they think it should be built, but by the one who designed and gave them life and actually gave them direction for life. You know what this book is? This is directions for life. A lot of people think that this is a bunch of rules and regulations and that God just wants control. No. He just knows where every piece fits for your life. The problem is you don't. It's why you need to dive into his word so you can understand. That's why he says a person who fears the Lord, they actually delight in his commands. You're saying, God, your word isn't restrictive. It's actually reliable for my life. And you begin to see that what he's asking you to do, that obedience is not a duty, it's actually a delight. Because when I follow his paths, the principles turn out that my life turns out amazing. Like, this book is full of principles that will transform your life. Instead of living by your opinion, which is how most people are living today. Well, this is what I think. Well, listen, everybody's got an opinion and they all stink. So it's not a great way to live. But this way, the principles are true, and if you apply them, you will see transformation in your life. And your legacy actually begins the moment you surrender your story to the author of your life. So many of us, we're trying to write our own story, and God's going, man, I've already got a script for you. If you would actually seek me, I would reveal it to you. And so legacy begins with lordship. Number two, legacy blesses the next generation. Legacy blesses the next generation. It says this in verse 2 and 3. Their children will be mighty in the land. The generation of the upright will be blessed. Wealth and riches are in their house, and their righteousness endures forever. And the proof of a God-first life is a generational impact. When the fear of the Lord, the blessing doesn't stop with you, it actually begins to flow through you. The psalm says that your children will be mighty in the land. That means that the decisions of faith you make today become the strength for your family that they'll stand on tomorrow. So like the greatest inheritance you could give your children is an inheritance of faith. Because listen, the true wealth isn't the car you leave in the driveway. It's the character and the integrity you leave in their hearts. And you walk uprightly, and your kids will see that God's not your Sunday hobby, but He's your Monday anchor, which is what they need to see. You're teaching them that, like, man, faith is not this thing that just like, ooh, I feel something and I go off of that. No. It's a framework for how I build my life. And here's what I know in our church. There's so many of you that you are first generation believers. Like you're the first people in your family that have found Christ. And listen to me, you are breaking curses and building blessings at the same time. Like you are changing the trajectory of your family, your children, your great-grandchildren, your great-great-grandchildren's future. You're changing the trajectory of the meaning and definition of your last name. And heaven is cheering you on and saying, keep building, because your kids and your grandkids will walk on the foundation that you're laying today. It's that critical. And if you're a parent, listen, your children are watching what you prioritize in life. They're learning not by what you say, by what you do. If you're single, future generations will eat the fruit of the choices you're making right here and right now today. Listen, if you're older, and I want to speak to some older people because you had a faith that was very bold and very audacious when you were younger, but the kids are gone. Listen, your children and your grandchildren are still watching your life. Your faith, I am who I am because I had a grandmother that was willing and bold to pray over and over and over again when my family did not know God except for her. You have no idea what your impact can be in future generations. Listen, the greatest accomplishment in life might not be something you do, but it might actually be somebody you raise. And so legacy isn't a moment, it's a lifetime of small, consistent, God-first decisions that ripple out into other people's lives. Number 3, legacy shines brightest in the dark. In verse 4, it says, even in darkness, light dawns for the upright and for those who are gracious and compassionate and righteous. And here's what I learned in life. Anybody can praise and hoot and holler when it's perfect. But legacy is proven when you're going through painful moments. Listen, your legacy will never be proven by comfort. It's proven by your consistency even in the difficult times. And I'm here to tell you, your faith is going to be tested. I say this all the time. You're in one of 3 spots in life. You're either in a storm, you're coming out of a storm, or you're about to go into a storm. If you're like, well, everything's rosy, get ready. The perpetual crap is about to hit the fan, and it's gonna be dark. It's gonna be difficult. But those are the seasons where your legacy is formed. I remember the early days of this church. I remember my wife and I getting this, knowing that God was calling us to move from where we were 4 hours away to come here and start a church. And everybody has a picture of what they think it will be. How many of you know that most of the time it does not end up looking like that picture? Like I saw this, and what I ended up with 4 years in was nothing like this. And I remember just being so overwhelmed. I remember just being dejected. I remember asking God, like, God, did you get the right guy? And so many times God going, hey, just keep showing up. God, but I'm not seeing anything. I remember when most of you weren't here, but let's see. This is November of 2025. 7 years ago, November of 2018, we moved into what is now our 3rd through 5th grade auditorium where we held service. And I remember when we were going into that space, we had built that facility. We literally had less than $1,000 in our checking account the day we moved in there. We bet the farm. We were like, God, we think this is, and I was like, God, if this doesn't work, we're gonna be homeless and broke in 30 days. Like, we're gonna get foreclosed on because we have nothing. I remember 2 years ago, right before this building opened, I was sitting on those steps, crying the night before, going, God, I think I've ruined our church. I built more than we could afford. And I remember when I was sitting there on those steps, God spoke to me and said, TJ, you're not building a church, you're building people's faith right now. Because your dark seasons are going to be the seasons that people will tell stories about later on. And it shifted my perspective because legacy isn't always shiny. Legacy isn't always perfect. Sometimes it's showing up weary and tired and going, God, I trust you anyways. It's when the pressure is on, do you crack? Like I studied a whole bunch about diamonds at one point because I was just enamored with the process of a diamond, because before a diamond is ever a diamond, it's a lump of coal. It's a lump of coal that gets buried, and then pressure goes onto it. Such immense pressure that it takes carbon and solidifies it so greatly because of so much pressure and so much heat that it turns it into something beautiful that everybody will put on a pedestal. And everybody loves the pedestal part of legacy, but it's the pressure part that makes the legacy. It's the difficult moments where you are shaken in life. And here's the deal, you are going to be shaken in life. I'm not here to tell you life's gonna be rainbows and butterflies, Hercules. Like, it's not. Life is going to shake you, and what spills out reveals who you really are. And my prayer is that when it spills faith and peace and grace, because your storm will eventually become somebody else's sermon. And people are watching how you walk through what you wish you could walk around. And that's how legacy shines, and that's what it's defined by. Number 4, legacy is multiplied through generosity. Verse 5 says, good will come to those who are generous and lend freely and conduct their affairs with justice. And here's what I've learned about legacy-minded people. Legacy-minded people don't live close-handed, they actually live open-handed. Because they realize that generosity does not subtract from their lives. Generosity actually multiplies their lives. They're not having something taken from them, they're having something flow through them. And when you give, you're not losing, you're actually planting for something in the future. And God takes what leaves your hand and uses it to change somebody else's life. That's what legacy is all about. It's one of the reasons why we do this series every year. We say, hey, this is our legacy season as a church where we go, God, what's in our hands that you want to use to accelerate the vision of what you are doing here in our church? And every year in this time, if you've been a part of this house for any length of time, you know that we don't ever even talk about how you can give or money, but one time of year we do, and it's this season of life that we'll unashamedly talk about what God is doing in our church and how we can accelerate the vision further, faster. And this is one of those times where we kind of lay out because God is doing amazing things in our church. We're growing astronomically in ways that we couldn't imagine. We've launched additional locations. People are coming to Christ like crazy. We've had more baptisms than we've ever had. We've had more salvation. We're going to talk all about that next weekend. But I want to share with you what I believe God would have us go and accelerate towards in 2026. And there are a couple things that I think that we can move forward faster with. The first one is we think it's time that we launch our 4th location to go reach more people for Jesus Christ, because we've said we want to make it hard for people to go to hell by making it easy for them to go to church so they can experience, know, and follow Jesus. And if we're really about making it easy for people to go to church, then we can't wait for people to come to our church. We've got to bring the church to them. And we believe that in order for the local church to be most effective, it must be local. And there are way too many people that are driving 20, 30, 40 minutes to our church every weekend from communities where they need a life-giving church like Coastal Community Church. And we believe that God has called us to go put them there. And so this is an opportunity we have. We think that we can do this in the fall of 2026 and reach more people for Jesus Christ, just like we have in Lighthouse Point and in West Boca. It's an amazing, amazing thing. Here's the second thing I believe that we can do is our current facilities at a couple of our locations, we're outgrowing kids space, lobby space, all kinds of things, and we need to add more rooms. Like our kids space here, there's over 700 kids that will show up at Coastal Kids just at this location. That's bigger than 99% of the churches in Broward, Miami-Dade, and Palm Beach counties. Our kids ministry is bigger than most churches. Lighthouse Point blowing up. Like we're looking for spaces permanent for West Boca right now. Like there are some things that need to happen from roofs and parking lots to more space that we just need to upgrade facilities. Because why? Because there's just so many people that are using them that they're being overrun. We need to make more room for more people. Why? Because we want to make it hard for people to go to hell by making it easy for them to go to church. Here's the third thing, and this is particularly for this location. We're going to expand our parking here. I don't know if you've ever come and tried. I know you don't really like parking your Bentley on grass. Okay, we get it. Come on, Parkland, you know that's true. So we have an opportunity to purchase an additional 4 acres and put an additional 266 parking spots, which equates to about an additional 2,400 people that could attend church every weekend at this location. And so all of these 3 things cost a total of about $6 million. I know, it's not that much, is it? Actually, if you thought that, come see me afterwards. I would love for you to write that check and just make it really easy. But it's gonna cost $6 million. And I've always said, hey, we're gonna move at the speed of your generosity. So we don't have to do any of these things. Like, I'm serious. Like, I'm the most content guy. That's a lie. That's not true. I'll tell you this. I'm overwhelmed with God, what God has already done in our church. And so I've told you this. I thought if I could ever pastor 2,000 people, I would have hit the epitome of my leadership lid. We're 2.5 times past that. But I don't think God's finished. I think that there are more of his kids that he wants to come home. And we have an opportunity to reach more of them by going and planning additional locations, upgrading facilities, putting in additional parking. So more, you don't know how many times every weekend that our parking team tells me, because of how crazy the line backing up coming into our church is, people pull out of the line, turn around and not come to church. Like I just made it hard for them to come to church rather than easy. And so this is our opportunity. And on December 7th, we're gonna have a special offering for this. This is $6 million above our regular tithes and offerings. And so here's what I'm gonna ask of you. I'm not gonna ask you to give, I'm actually gonna ask you to pray. I'm gonna ask you to pray as a family and ask God how He would want you to be a part of what God is doing here in our church. And here's what I would ask is that you would pray and you would ask Him, and then you just be obedient to whatever He says. And I believe that if we do that, then God will do immeasurably more. It's Ephesians 3, 20 and 21 that we read over you guys every week. Now to Him who is able to do immeasurably more than all we can ask, think, or imagine, according to His power that is at work in you. He wants to do this, but He's gonna use you to do it. Like, you are the key to God reaching more people. I don't know if you've ever saw it from that perspective. God can do immeasurably more, but He wants to use you and I to do it. So there is a responsibility on our part to realize that our legacy is multiplied through generosity. And here's what I know about God, is God is building His church and the gates of hell will not prevail. And so if you wanna invest in anything that's gonna outlive your influence, here's what I promise you. Long after you're gone, this church will still be here. This church will still be impacting people's lives, whether you're in Lighthouse Point, whether you're in West Boca, whether you're in that future location, or right here in Parkland, and people will be transformed because your generosity doesn't just pay bills, it actually builds stories. Stories of people's lives who are forever changed. People like Andy, who just told me his story earlier today, who said, TJ, a year ago, I had never been in church. Life's been transformed, gone through freedom. Now he's serving you as you walk in the door every single week. Every single time these doors are open. Andy, I don't know what your life is like, but you are here. It's an amazing thing. Why? Because God has transformed a generation just with Andy. Do you know how many other people's lives have been transformed? They say the best time to plant a tree is 20 years ago. The second best time is today. Generosity works the same way. You may never sit under the branches of that tree, but someone else will. An old Chinese proverb says, a society grows great when men plant trees in whose shade they will never shall sit. Will we be people who plant trees so that people we will never meet can have shade to sit under? Will we be people that build the church so the gates of hell will not prevail, not just in this generation, but generations to come? Number 5, legacy outlasts you. It says in verse 6, surely the righteous will never be shaken. They will be remembered forever. Because here's the deal. One day your title, your houses, your followers, they will all be gone. But your influence, it can keep speaking. The goal isn't to live forever, but to create something in someone that will. The ones who say, because you prayed, I found faith. Because you gave, I met Jesus. Because you forgave, I saw and I experienced the grace of God. Whenever I think about legacy, I think about a guy named Alfred Nobel. You might have heard of Alfred Nobel because he created this thing called the Nobel Peace Prize. Anybody heard of the Nobel Peace Prize? It's one of the most famous prizes that's given out every year to people who have done good and made a difference, whether it's in science, technology, the elimination of human suffering. But the only reason that there is a Nobel Peace Prize is because earlier in Alfred Nobel's life, he had a brother who passed away. And when Alfred Nobel woke up the next morning after his brother's passing, he went to the newspaper to read his brother's obituary. Except the newspaper had gotten it wrong and thought that Alfred Nobel had died. And so what he's doing is he's reading the obituary of his life and what the world is going to remember him by. And this is what it says. It says, here is the man who made it possible to kill more people more effectively than anyone who has ever lived. Because Alfred Nobel had also invented this thing called dynamites. And they had taken the glycerin and they had learned how to use it for weaponry and war. And so they actually titled it "The Mass Murderer is Dead." And he read his obituary and he said, that's not how I want to be remembered. That's not the legacy I want to leave. And so he decided, I'm going to do something about it. And so for the rest of his life, he started reversing the curse of his name to leave a legacy of peace. Changed the entire narrative of his life to where you associate him with a prize for peace, where before they would have associated him with as the merchant of death. And I know that there's people that are out there today that you think to yourself, TJ, I've blown my legacy. And I would just tell you, remember, God is the redeemer of legacies. He restores the years. He rebuilds the stories. He rewrites the endings. And you can leave money or you can leave memories. But the only legacy that lasts forever is souls. The greatest legacy you can leave is introducing people to a life-giving relationship with Jesus. Sir Winston Churchill says, you make a living by what you get. And a lot of us, we're making livings. But you make a life by what you give. What are you giving? What are you giving your life to? What are you giving to people that encounter you? Because that's what you're going to be remembered by. And listen, legacy isn't what you leave behind, it's what you set in motion in other people. And for some of you today, the motion that you need to set is actually a motion of surrender. Because you know that you've been living life for me, myself, and I. Life has been built around you. And maybe today is the day that you need to go, you know what? I want to build a legacy, and a legacy begins with lordship. Who am I going to serve? Am I going to serve myself? Or am I going to choose to serve God, the one who loved me so much? John 3:16, for God so loved the world that he gave his only begotten Son, that whoever believes in him shall not perish, but have eternal life. And God isn't here to condemn you, because the next verse tells us he didn't come to condemn, but to save. And maybe today, you need to begin your legacy story by giving up control and surrendering to the one who controls it all. With every head bowed and every eye closed, maybe that's you here today. It begins with a simple yet significant prayer of surrender. Maybe you've been chasing success, but what you really crave is significance. Maybe you built things that won't last, and today you want to start building something that is eternal. And this is the moment where you make Jesus the center of it all. If that's you, I'd love to pray a simple yet significant prayer with you. that changes everything for everyone. If you just slip your hands up at the count of 3, 1, 2, 3. Go ahead and slip those hands up. Thank you, thank you, thank you. I see you, thank you, thank you. If you just pray this in your heart, as I prayed out loud, say, God, thank you for giving the greatest gift, the gift of your son, Jesus. Jesus, I ask you to come into my heart and take over my life. I surrender my will and my way. I ask you to forgive me of my past, change my present, and secure my future. Thank you for loving me and saving me. God, today I choose to live for you. Would you lead, God, and direct me all the days of my life? It's in Jesus' name that I pray. And everybody said,